Well, this segment is really dedicated to a key concept within social psychology, one of many, but this one is brought up, excuse me, brought up quite a bit, involving attitudes and behavior. This is called cognitive dissonance. The man who came up with this idea and really provided a lot of evidence to support it, Leon Festinger. Well, cognitive dissonance is a concept it's a little hard to wrap your head around, so I'll do my best to describe it, and I'll direct you to a YouTube video that'll do a better job describing it than I can. Cognitive dissonance involves the conflict that occurs when a person holds two contradictory attitudes or beliefs, and also what happens as a result of that conflict. Okay, so if you have, and this is just a basic example, but if you have two contradictory cognitions, such as I smoke and smoking leads to cancer. Okay, that leads to dissonance, according to this theory, and that in turn leads to one of a variety of results here. Okay, you can actually modify one or both of your cognitions. You can sort of rationalize and say, well, I don't smoke that much, or well, I don't really believe the evidence that much in terms of connecting smoking with cancer and so forth. Or you can change the perceived importance of the cognition. You can say, well, the evidence is pretty weak for that link anyway. You can deny the link entirely. You can add additional cognitions. You can say, well, I kind of exercise a lot, which overwhelms my smoking anyway. So this is a very simple example. It makes it seem like cognitive dissonance is just rationalization. But that, as I said, that's very limited way of looking at it. As you'll see here in a moment, it goes far beyond this kind of example here. So think about this hypothetical experiment. I'm also going to direct you to a video that'll describe this experiment in great detail. There's a boring task that's involved here. I won't go into details to what that is. Just say, hey, it's a really, really boring task that the participants are being asked to do. And then once a participant is done doing this boring task, you say, listen, what's really important to this experiment is that for the next participants that come in, we need someone to tell them that the task, which is actually boring, we want you to tell them, we need someone who can tell them that it's actually very interesting, very exciting. Well, maybe not exciting, but very interesting. And the person we normally have to do this isn't here today, so we really could use you to do this. So that's what you tell the participant, and of course this is all part of the act, part of the experiment. So you ask them to help introduce the task to new participants coming in, but you tell this participant, lie about it. You know, go ahead and tell them it's interesting, even though obviously it isn't. And because we're asking you to do this, we'll give you some money to do this. Every time you tell a participant that it's an interesting task, you'll get $1. Or, so that's half the participants. A random half say they'll get $1, are told they'll get $1, and they do. The other half are told they'll get $20 each time for each participant they lie to. Okay, and so that's how the experiment works. Okay, and then a bunch of participants come in, and your main participant here is lying to each one of them, telling them that the task is interesting. And you do this for lots and lots of participants. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of people in the $1 group and a whole bunch of people in the $20 group. Okay. Then in the follow-up interview, here's the really important part of the experiment. You're asking the people who you told them to lie to these other participants. You don't care about those other participants. You care about the people who were lying for you, telling those participants that it was actually an interesting task, and they know that they're lying. Okay, so the follow-up interview involves asking these participants you told to lie, ask them, hey, back when you actually did that boring task, you don't say it's a boring task, but you say, back when you did the task, before we asked you to lie for us, how boring or interesting did you actually find that task to be? And how likely would you do the task over again? Okay. Well, I want you to consider this, okay, because this comes to it goes to the heart of cognitive dissonance theory. Which group do you think is more likely to say it was an interesting task, and boy, I'd like to do it again? Now, you're not asking them about the task of lying to people. You're asking them about the original task that they did, okay, which was actually boring. What's the likelihood, which group? The $1 group, so remember, a bunch of people were paid $1 every time they had to lie about it, saying it was interesting. And a bunch of people got $20 every time they had to lie about it and say it was interesting. Which of those two groups do you think is more likely to say, actually, it was interesting, okay? They actually believe that it was an interesting task. And they say, sure, I'd like to do it again. Which group do you think will say that? Pause the video, come up with an answer. and I'll go ahead and proceed now. It was actually the $1 group. Okay, most people assume it was going to be the $20 group because they were paid more to say it was interesting, so maybe that'll change their mind and make them actually think it was interesting. No, it was the $1 group. The video that will explain why this is, I can explain it as well, but this video can do a better job than I can. A lesson in cognitive dissonance. Search for those words on YouTube. It's the one that's 4 minutes, 53 seconds long. It'll describe and illustrate this original experiment by Leon Festinger, and it'll describe very well why the $1 group actually changed their mind and really thought the task was interesting, and boy, they'd like to do it again. I'll end this segment at this point, but I will have more to say about cognitive dissonance in the next segment.